This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. TV presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
اعتقلت أجهزة الأمن العراقية أبو عمر البغدادي زعيم القاعدة في
Iraqi security agencies arrested the leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq, Abu Umar al-Baghdadi, the prince of the so-called Islamic State of Iraq. A spokesperson for the Iraqi military announced that they have arrested Abu Umar al-Baghdadi, the prince of the Islamic State of Iraq, which is a coalition led by al-Qaeda. The Iraqi security agencies did not give additional details, not even details surrounding the arrest. The Iraqi security agencies revealed in May 2008 to Al-Arabiya that the real name of Abu Umar al-Baghdadi is Hamid Dawood al-Zawi. Umar al-Baghdadi, or as we mentioned, his real name is Hamid Dawood al-Zawi, emerged after the arrest of Abu Musab al-Zarqawi in June 2006. Prior to this, al-Baghdadi was the most important aide to Zarqawi since the beginning of al-Qaeda's undertaking in Iraq. As a result of logistical differences with other armed Iraqi groups who reject the presence of foreign organizations in their country, al-Qaeda announced the establishment of a coalition consisting of armed organizations. Al-Qaeda was the only known organization in this coalition, which is called the Council of Shura al-Mujahideen. Abu Umar al-Baghdadi was made its president. In regards to security, 45 people were killed in an attack aimed at Iranian visitors in the city of Baquba, the capital of the province of Diyal Ahwa in Baghdad.
مدينة بعقوبة عاصمة محافظة ديالى وفي بغداد أعلنت مصادر أمنية عن مقتل 28 شخصا وإصابة أكثر من 50.
Security sources said that 28 people were killed and more than 50 were injured in a suicide explosion targeting a police patrol unit. The source also said that the suicide bomber was wearing the same vest worn by police officers assisting displaced families. In addition to these developments in Iraq, we have with us from Baghdad our correspondent Faris al-Mihdawi. Faris, in regards to the arrest of the al-Qaeda leader in Iraq, Abu Umar al-Baghdadi, are there more details surrounding his arrest?
من معلومات أوفى حول ملابسات الاعتقال.
في حقيقة الأمر أن
The truth of the matter is that the details that have surfaced about the arrest of Abu Umar al-Baghdadi were only received an hour ago from some foreign news services, as well as the official Iraqi channel. They quoted Alawi Qasim Atta, the official spokesman for the enforcement of the rule of law security plan. I, until just a few minutes ago, was meeting with the most important local officials in order to obtain accurate information in regards to this issue. Unfortunately, nobody responded to the matter. In general, since yesterday, a rumor was spread in the city about the arrest of an important leader of al-Qaeda, but the Iraqi security authorities did not announce the name or identity of this individual until the details surfaced an hour ago. Perhaps after an investigation of this individual took place, the security authorities wanted to confirm decisively and critically the identity of the individual being held. They have announced that they have arrested Abu Umar al-Baghdadi, but there are conflicting reports regarding to this issue. Some say that his arrest took place in Baghdad, and others indicate that his arrest took place in the province of Kirkuk or Diyala. We will try to get a confirmation of this matter in the coming hours. It is known that most developed countries around the world seek to boost and benefit from their tourism industry, which is a valuable resource of wealth, despite the lack of rivers in some of these countries.
In Iraq, the Tigris Boulevard, which is known as the Corniche, is suffering from neglect and marginalization. The former Iraqi regime has isolated the Corniche area from the rest of the country with lavish palaces that were built along its banks.
It seems that these buildings overlooking the Tigris River are standing in the way of development. Some of these buildings were once lavish palaces owned by the family of the former Iraqi dictator, and others were used as chambers of horror by the former security agencies. Amidst this, the Tigris Corniche was turned into a large prison with restrictions and warning signs surrounding it from all directions, signs such as no stopping, photographing is prohibited, not a meeting area, and others. It seems that the Tigris Corniche is still considered to be a restricted area, but there are minor changes. The Corniche area was turned into a boulevard merely used by convoys of the Iraqi officials and security forces, with the exceptions of the few gardens and seafood restaurants overlooking the Tigris River.
I hope that Baghdad's Corniche will become as good as other tourist attractions around the world. The area needs to be developed by building high-rise buildings, gardens, and amusement parks, similar to those we see around the world.
As far as the cultural buildings are concerned, we have special codes regarding their construction or demolishment. We will not allow anyone to demolish these historical buildings because they represent the national identity of Iraq.
Some Iraqis believe that developing the Tigris Corniche area may lead to opening Iraq's market to foreign investments. However, the ecological conditions in and around the Tigris area make it less attractive to foreign investors. Among the problems facing the Corniche, harmful plants are continuing to grow near the river, which is also suffering from deposits and low water level and pressure. In contrast, Iraqi investors have more incentives than their foreign counterparts to invest in the area of Kathamiya, pending the approval of the Iraqi government. This is important to Iraq due to the area's religious and tourist reputation.
We need to remove some of the deposits left on the riverbanks. We also need to develop all areas adjacent to the Corniche by building parks and promenades. Yes, there is a possibility for investment.
The visitors need hotels and gift shops, so they can buy souvenirs and memorabilia before returning home.
The Iraqi government began to implement development projects in the province of Baghdad after the area witnessed stability with its security. The plan aimed at rejuvenating the area by building hotels and residential buildings as well as building a promenade stretching over 26 kilometers. However, the project is facing several obstacles such as the lack of funds and resources, in addition to what has been described as the presence of religiously banned activities.
There has been illegal encroachments in the Corniche area by some of the residents. Some of the local fields have been bulldozed, with the soil and the dirt being removed. A mosque was built in the area, which in turn is hampering the efforts of development in the area of Khorat Corniche. We need to connect the area of Khorat with a major street that runs parallel to the Tigris River, which will also link the area to the Khorat Bridge. God willing, we will demolish the mosque and remove all posts that are encroaching on government property. We are planning to launch a rigorous campaign over the next week aimed at removing all posts. We need to organize the area of Khorat, which is one of the most important tourist attractions in the city of Baghdad.
Iraq's riverbanks and Corniche areas may continue to witness neglect and marginalization because they are home to some of Iraq's ancient buildings, which no one is allowed to restore because they are a symbol of Iraq's national identity. If buildings have become a symbol of Iraq's national identity, then we must say goodbye to the future of investment and development in Iraq.
The Human Rights Watch organization said that the investigation conducted by the Israeli army into its conduct in Gaza lacks credibility. 10 international and Israeli organizations have demanded an independent investigation.
This comes as the Israeli army finished its investigations into Gaza and came up with the conclusion that its forces exhibited professionalism and a high standard of morality, and that they did not commit deliberate mistakes.
It is not surprising that the Israeli army, which concluded that targeting children with snipers and preventing ambulances from reaching the wounded were not deliberate acts, also concluded its internal investigation with the following results.
We have not found a single case in which our soldiers deliberately intended to hit civilians. This includes aerial, naval, and land attacks. We found that the Defense Army exhibited a high standard of professionalism and complied with laws and moral standards.
No one blames the military officials for reaching this conclusion. Their conclusion was to be expected, as they are both the defendant and the judge. Eyewitness testimonies of living victims were considered unlikely in the Army report. Though the dead who were killed by a barrage of bullets are no longer living to testify, some Israeli soldiers broke the wall of silence and talked about what they have committed in Gaza. The Israeli military institution has conducted investigations in 5 separate incidents, which include the attack on the UN Refugee and Workers Agency in Jabalia, which killed 42 Palestinians under the pretext that armed Palestinians were in the school. The school administration, however, denied these claims, which compelled the Israeli military leadership to acknowledge this fact, but it still held the Hamas movement responsible, saying that it deliberately moved in crowded residential areas. The aerial strike on the Al-Zaytun neighborhood, which killed more than 20 civilians, was also investigated. The Israeli report said that the incident was regrettable. The report justified the burning of the UN warehouses in Gaza with white phosphorus, saying that it was a mock attack that was aimed at protecting a nearby tank. The justification of using white phosphorus in Gaza, however, was rejected by human rights organizations. According to the Israeli military report, Israel complied with international law and used 2 kinds of white phosphorus, one to create cloudy conditions to protect its people on the ground, claiming that the object was to spare civilian lives because it eliminated the need for bombs. The report claims that the Israeli army used limited amounts of the other kind of white phosphorus to locate targets in non-residential areas.
كما ورد في التقرير، ويضيف أن النوع الثاني كان لتحديد الأهداف، وقد استخدمته القوات البحرية والبرية، لكن بكميات محدودة.
10 international and Israeli organizations, including Doctors for Human Rights and Bet Salem, released a joint statement saying that the results of the army investigation are controversial and demanded that another investigation be conducted by an independent committee from outside the military institution. The statement said that if Israel did not commit crimes and human rights violations in Gaza, then why is it afraid of cooperating with the UN committee which was assigned to the investigation into Gaza? A similar position was taken by the US-based Human Rights Watch organization, which said that the Israeli army report is humiliating to the victims and that it lacks credibility. The organization also said that it seems that the Israeli army report was a cover-up for the dangerous violations of international law which were documented by the organization. The organization demanded that these violations be investigated by an independent international committee. It also cast doubt over the fact that Israel carried out the investigation, saying that the 5 army officers who were assigned to the investigations do not hold the proper ranks to carry out such an investigation.
الذين أولجوا بالتحقيقات لا تؤهلهم رتبهم للاطلاع بها.
العاصمة المصرية تضع رئيس الحكومة الإسرائيلية على.
The Egyptian capital put the Israeli Prime Minister's name on its list of expected guests. Egypt's intelligence chief, Omar Suleiman, officially invited Benjamin Netanyahu when he met with him in occupied Jerusalem. Suleiman arrived yesterday morning in Israel to discuss peace negotiations with the Palestinians as well as the prisoner swap deal with Hamas. According to sources that are closely associated with the negotiation process, Suleiman also invited the Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman to visit Egypt during a meeting that was held between the two away from the media. Suleiman's visit preceded the ongoing political preparations in Washington aimed at pushing the peace process forward. Meanwhile, the Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman reiterated his rejection of the Arab Peace Initiative, which is based on a 2-state solution. Suleiman's visit to Israel came as Israeli bulldozers were demolishing a Palestinian home in East Jerusalem. We leave you with Shuruk Assad in occupied Jerusalem.
وتزامنت الزيارة مع هدم الجرافات الإسرائيلية لمنزل فلسطيني في القدس الشرقية المحتلة. شروق أسعد من القدس المحتلة.
The visit by Egypt's intelligence chief, Omar Suleiman, is important because it is the first of its kind since the right-wing Israeli government was formed. The visit preceded expected political meetings in Washington. The visit did not lead to tangible results. It was only designed to get a sense of Israel's positions towards major issues of concern to Egypt, such as the cooling-off process in Gaza, opening the Gaza crossings, reconstructing Gaza, and the prisoner swap deal with Hamas. Israel prefers not to resolve these issues anytime soon, as these issues may be used as bargaining chips in Washington.
There are indications that there will be a great deal of diplomatic activities at the White House in June. Until then, I do not think that Israel wants to lose any bargaining chips. Perhaps Netanyahu's government thinks that it can use these chips later.
Suleiman's visit came as Israeli bulldozers were demolishing a Palestinian home in East Jerusalem. Meanwhile, Israeli Foreign Minister Lieberman reiterated his rejection to the two-state solution and the Arab Peace Initiative, as well as the right of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes. Defense Minister Ehud Barak disagreed with Lieberman during the inter-cabinet meeting, which was held before the arrival of Suleiman. Ehud Barak said that peace initiatives must be given a chance while expressing Israel's reservations.
We should not depend on these kinds of differences between Israeli officials. We should depend on the U.S. in the hopes that it will fulfill its promises pertaining to the two-state solution and ending the occupation that started in 1967. This is what we depend on.
The Israeli position does not leave much for hope, which explains why the Palestinian Authority is relying on Washington. Sharouk Assad, Dubai Television, Occupied Jerusalem. The head of Egyptian intelligence, Omar Suleiman, and the Israeli Defense Minister, Ehud Barak, have discussed the situation in the Gaza Strip, the continuation of peace talks, opening the crossings, and a prisoner swap deal. The Defense Minister, Ehud Barak, came in response to an invitation by Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak to visit Cairo. Our correspondent, Ruba Al-Mimi, reports.
The meeting between the Minister Omar Suleiman and the Israeli delegation was dominated by a backdrop of extremist Israeli politics. This political atmosphere is not only antagonistic to the Palestinians, but also to the Arab nations who signed peace deals with Israel, such as Egypt and its president, Barak, who was subject to hostile remarks previously made by Israel's foreign minister, Avigdor Lieberman, directed at Cairo and President Mubarak. Suleiman's shuttle diplomacy attempts to mend the relations between the two nations, one of which has been drifting to the right, considering that a wholehearted normalization has not been achieved between the two countries for the past 33 years.
Egypt wants to save its position and its status. Egypt is attempting to the best of its abilities to reach something new because during this period there weren't any negotiations or the negotiations had failed. Currently, the negotiations regarding Shalit have failed, so this has had a harmful impact on Egypt's regional status in the Middle East.
Egypt and the regional role it plays in the peace process searches for new prospects if the Israeli government is interested, among them the issue of Shalit, the blockade of Gaza, and most importantly, Israel's call for recognition as a Jewish state.
The current visit concerns Israel in regards to two issues. As you mentioned, Shalit, and how they are going to deal with the Gaza Strip in the event that Israel carries out a new attack in the Gaza if rockets are fired from within the Strip.
Meanwhile, Lieberman has described the Arab Peace Initiative as dangerous and damaging to Israel. Egyptian diplomatic efforts are attempts to save what it can of a peace process that the Israeli government doesn't believe in. From Occupied Jerusalem, Ruba Al-Mimi for Future TV.
As Ruba Al-Mimi said, the Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman has described the Arab Peace Initiative as a recipe for Israel's destruction. Lieberman has refused to uphold previous agreements made by the Israeli government in the Annapolis Conference and the new American Peace Initiative, saying that the peace process depends on steps initiated by Israel. Lieberman described the two-state solution as a nice slogan, but one devoid of any real substance.
Moving on now, there are the harshest words yet from the United States over recent events in Pakistan. The U.S. Secretary of State accused Islamabad of abdicating to extremists over its recent deal with the Taliban in the Swat Valley. Hillary Clinton called it a threat to world security. Taliban fighters are now just 100 kilometers from the capital Islamabad, having overrun the district of Buner. As Hoda Abdelhamid reports, now from Islamabad, the government has been forced to send in troops to protect its buildings and bridges.
They were first up in the mountains along the border with Afghanistan. Then they took over the Swat Valley. And now Pakistan's Taliban seem to be advancing to the heartland of the country, with little resistance facing them. These exclusive pictures, aired by Al Jazeera last week, are proof that these militants are already well established in Buner. They have fighters patrolling the villages and towns of this district, about 4 hours' drive from the capital. After cutting the controversial deal that resulted in their interpretation of Islamic law being imposed in the Swat Valley, Pakistan's Taliban are vowing to push for their version of Sharia to become the law of the land. The US has denounced the deal, accusing Islamabad of failing the people and allowing the Taliban to step into the legal vacuum.
I think that the Pakistani government is basically abdicating to the Taliban and to the extremists. But look at why this is happening. If you talk to people in Pakistan, especially in the ungoverned territories, which are increasing in number, they don't believe the state has a judiciary system that works.
Islamabad refuted the claims it was not in control.
Agreements are made so that both sides are bound by it. We have a minimum understanding, and that needs to be adhered to. Our agreement was that there will be peace in Swat, and in return, we will give them speedy justice.
But perhaps even more alarming for Pakistanis are the words of Fazlur Rahman, the leader of Jamaat Ulama Islam, one of the religious parties in parliament.
If the Taliban continue to move at this pace, they will soon be knocking at the door of Islamabad.
This only confirms the wider apprehensions held by the people in Pakistan, because these were the guys who were behind the Taliban movement back in the mid-90s.
Such warnings serve to increase the atmosphere of uncertainty here. Islamabad has been put on high alert for several weeks now. Certainly there is more visible presence of security forces on the streets. Potential targets like hotels and embassies have been cordoned off. But many here say that the Taliban have already proven that they have a presence not only in the capital, but in other major cities across the country. Many fear that it's already too late to reverse the tide of what they call the Talibanization of Pakistan. Ehud Abdul Hamid, Al Jazeera, Islamabad.
Poll surveys in Turkey showed that the popularity of the Islamic al-Qaeda party has increased after the ban on its spiritual leader and former Prime Minister Najmuddin Erbakan was lifted. Political observers say that an increase in the al-Qaeda party popularity will be at the expense of the ruling Justice and Development Party.
حزب السعادة الإسلامي الذي أحرز زيادة في أصواته بنسبة 100%.
The support base of the Islamic al-Qaeda party increased by 100% in the latest local elections. Its spiritual leader, Najmuddin Arabakan, decided to become an active member in the party after the ban was lifted. According to the latest polls, this has increased the popularity of the party, which has put the current Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan in an awkward position.
I have returned to the party as a regular member. My goal is to serve God and the people.
He is the official president of the party. Thank God the party is now stronger. The support base of the party has increased by 100%. The return of Arabakan to the party as a regular member will strengthen the party, and God willing, you will see people flocking to the party in the coming days.
Arabakan could not walk with the people due to his health condition, but he will use his historical role to generate public support for the party's leader, Nu'man Qartamosh, and to improve relations with Arab and Muslim countries, which explains why he insists on participating in their national holidays. He chose Iran as the first Islamic country to visit after the political ban on him was lifted.
Mr. Arabakan has no political ambitions. He is trying to serve the Turkish and Muslim nations. He announced he will return to the party to serve the nation. His old age does not allow him to move much, but he said that he will fight until his last breath to achieve his noble mission of Islamic unity. Iran was the first country he visited in order to achieve this dream.
Lifting the political ban on Arabakan will revive the sense of nationalism and will give huge moral support to the Islamic al-Qaeda party, which will negatively affect the future of the Justice and Development Party. Muhammad al-Abbasi, Al-Alam, Ankara.
Today is International Earth Day, a day in which the entire world acts to save our delicate environment and renew our dedication to making the planet a greener, better place to live. Here with more is IBA's Jonathan Elkins from our Tel Aviv studio. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Yochanan. Yes, Earth Day celebrations throughout our fragile planet. In New York City, the renowned Times Square Ball took on the shape of Mother Earth as New Yorkers were called upon to create green jobs, recycle, and cut down on pollution. Here in Israel, all the residents of 6 major cities are being called on to turn their lights out and appliances off at homes and work for 1 hour tonight to help turn down electricity use, turn up environmental awareness, and turn on kids and their parents to working against the dangers of global warming. Actually, the International Lights Out event took place a month ago, but that was the night of Israel's fateful World Cup soccer qualifying match, so no one here was about to turn off their TVs, but better late than never, as they say. And guess who's going to be sitting in the dark along with you? That's right, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Shimon Peres promised they'd be saving on energy by shutting off their lights tonight. Netanyahu has been criticized by local green groups who say 1 hour of one day isn't going to save the environment, while the other 364 days of the year, cars and factories continue to belch smoke into the air and raw sewage continues to flow into the sea. U.S. President Barack Obama marked the day by calling for weaning his country off oil through wind power and solar energy, as well as $2 billion for electric car research. Here in Jerusalem, a grand celebration with dance and song this evening as the old city walls are lit up in green. In Tel Aviv, celebrations throughout the city, including a grand musical performance at Rabin Square this evening, powered by electricity generated by bikers and by cooking oil previously used to fry falafel. Good sounds and good smells, too, all for our fragile planet.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.